What's up, my people? Welcome back. So as you've seen in the title, we're building a really extremely powerful AI hotel customer support chatbot. In the process, we're going to be going through several functionalities in Voiceflow that will enhance the power within your Voiceflow chatbots, enabling you to build chatbots that drive real impact. So here's a demo. So here I've deployed the chatbot on my local computer, so I'll just click on the chat bubble and we'll get into it. So the chatbot is able to handle general customer support, over 80% of customer support inquiries, handle booking of hotel rooms, as well as suggesting local attractions that the hotel guests can visit whilst at the hotel. So let's ask it some few questions. So first of all, is there a fitness center or gym at the hotel? Let us see. Yes, we have a fully equipped fitness center available for our guests. It is open 24/7. What are the check-in and check-out times? Check-in times from 3 p.m. and check-out is until 12 p.m. Let us see. Can I request an extra bed for my room? Yes, extra beds are available upon request. Please contact the front desk to make arrangements. And let's say I'm a social media guy and I need some Wi-Fi, okay? Let us see. Is Wi-Fi available at the hotel? Yes, complimentary Wi-Fi is available throughout the hotel for all guests. And what is the Wi-Fi password? So the Wi-Fi password is Hotel 2024. Now let's say I want to make a booking right now, okay? I want to book a room. Certainly, I'd be happy to assist with that. First, what's your name? That's my name. Proud of my African names, by the way. And my email. What about my phone number? There you go. Next, kindly select the type of room you want to book. So you can see there are several options over here: junior, suite, executive, presidential, standard room, deluxe, all this. So I'm an executive, so let me pick the executive suite, fit for purpose. So here you can read through the description of the executive suite. You can read through that, all that, so I don't want to bore you with the details, but let's get into it. So kindly mention the day you'd love to check in. So I'll be like, next week Monday. Awesome. And how long do you plan for your stay? For a week is good enough for this guy to just take a chill a bit. So that is 6 nights. Is that correct? Yes. Your total amount will be 300,000. Click the button below to pay. So let's make the payment. So you see the payment module pops up and we can proceed to make the payment. So it's through bank authentication. Okay, so let's authenticate. There you go, successfully booked your hotel room. Here's your booking ID. So kindly check your email for details in regard to your booking. So if I go to the CRM that's storing this booking details, which in this case is Airtable, we can be able to see that. So you can see it here in our bookings table. You can see booking ID 22, the customer name, email, their phone number that they stated, the date they want to check in. So you remember we said next week Monday, and we will check our calendar. Next week Monday is actually on 30th, so it was able to capture that. The number of nights, which is 6 nights, the room type, the status of their booking, the payment ID, and the amount they paid. And if I go to my email address that I used to make the booking, I can be able to see the booking details. So here you have it. You can see, dear Mutiso Mwadime, this is to inform on your recent booking at the hotel. Your stay starts on 2024-09-030 for a total of 6 nights. Your room type is that and your booking ID is that. Thank you for choosing the hotel. Looking forward to seeing you. Regards. Now let's say I just want to know if there are some fun places to visit whilst at the hotel. So I can be like, are there any fun places I can visit whilst at the hotel? So you can see absolutely I can assist find local attractions near that. You can see it's listed there, and you can see some examples. So you can see Nairobi National Museum, Giraffe Center, and Nairobi National Park. And if you want to, let's say, learn more about Nairobi National Museum, you can click that, and then you can read through the description that the museum is a treasure trove of Kenya's rich. I don't like reading all this, but you can pause and read through it. But now you're asking, yeah, this is all powerful and nice, but how do I get into building one myself? Let me show you. So we're building the chatbot using Voiceflow, the most popular chatbot builder out there. So if you don't have an account, go ahead and search voiceflow.com, register for an account. Then you'll arrive at your dashboard. You can be able to import the exact template we're using for this video. So link in the description if you want access to the entirety of what we're going to be building. So the template is available completely for free, as well as the code that we're going to use. So if we use any code within the video, link in the description for the GitHub repository, so you can go and copy the code and use it for your project for free. Let's get into it. So the chatbot starts with simple greetings. Hi there, I'm Alexa, your AI assistant. How may I help you today? And you can see that I generated some variations of that, so that the chatbot isn't so static. Then we capture the user's response and have the AI give a response to what the user asks. So you can see this is a response AI step that's answering from information in the knowledge base, and we'll go into the knowledge base to see what's there. But you can see it's a simple prompt, provide a relevant response to the customer's inquiry based on info in the knowledge base. Then we toggle on the not found path just in case it doesn't get an answer, we're able to handle it. Then we override the prompt settings. We pick the GPT 3.5 Turbo as the model. We lower the temperature to 0.1, especially when you're giving responses with the AI and you want it to be, you can be able to predict the answers it gives. Bring down the temperature to as low as possible. You don't want to increase the temperature because the AI will be creative, because temperature means being creative. So if you want it to give precise answers based on info in the knowledge base, bring down the temperature as low as possible. Preferably even bring it down to 0. I just wanted a bit of creativity, a bit. So set your maximum tokens, then the system prompt, okay? So you can pause and read through it, but I won't go through much of it. So you give it a role, the task, some specifics in regard to the task, some context in terms of the hotel that we are working with. Then you can give it some notes down here. But if you imported the template, you have this, so don't worry. So once the AI gets an answer, it's going to respond. Then it will ask, is there anything else I can help you with? Then we'll have some buttons. If they click yes, we tell them, sure, go ahead. Then we capture their response. So we'll send them back to the block, which is capture the user query. So if we just click on that, it will lead us to this capture block. Okay, so you're seeing that. But if they say no, we'll just say, if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out. I'm here for you. Okay, then we end the conversation. Otherwise, if there's a no match, so instead of clicking either of the buttons, they type in a statement into the chat widget. Just forward whatever they've asked into the response AI step for it to handle, giving a response to the user. So in case they don't click on the button but they continue just to ask another question, the response AI step will give a response to the user. Okay, so and in case the response AI doesn't get an answer, we'll follow the not found path and we'll say, sorry, I don't have a response at the moment. Is there anything else I can help with? Some buttons again, just like initially. If they say yes, we take them to the block of sure, go ahead, and that block is this one over here. Then if they say no, we take them to the block of AI is done with the questions, and this block is this block you're seeing over here. So you're noticing that all my blocks are named. So this is good practice I propose to you, just to ensure that you can easily build your chatbot and your canvas isn't so cluttered. Why is that? Because if I name my block, I don't have to drag the flow all the way across the canvas to go to a specific block. I can simply just do an action. So for example, here I delete this. So let me delete that. Then I can simply just go to actions, go to block. Then I can select the block that I want to go to. So you can see over here the blocks that I've already named. If I didn't name them, you'll see new block 1, new block 2, and you don't really know what this block was specifically doing. So if you name them, you're able to go to them easily. Okay, so that's a customer support part. It's quite simple, so you can be able to go through that. But now let's go into booking a room. So this section has a lot of learnings that you can be able to get, especially with rendering things dynamically or working with the function calling or even custom action blocks. So it's quite comprehensive, so pay attention. So let's go to that workflow, which is book a room workflow. So this workflow is being triggered by an intent, and that intent is the book a room intent. So if you go to the intent to see what kind of utterances are triggering this intent, you can be able to see that. So I'll go there, click edit the intent. Then you can be able to see this a book a room intent. This is the description, which doesn't really matter much unless you're using LLM intent classification. So in this case, you're using NLU intent classification, which is free, less accurate compared to using LLM intents, but is good enough for this case. Okay, so that's why this is a critical part, providing the kind of statements that trigger this intent. So you can pause and read through them. For example, can I reserve a room for next week? Are there any vacancies for the weekend? And so on and so forth. So I'll close that. So once this intent has been triggered, we'll get a response AI step to give a response to the statement the user has just mentioned before this. Okay, why are we doing this? Is so that the chat conversation is in perfect cohesion with what the user has just stated lastly. Okay, so you can be able to see we're passing in the last utterance, and in the prompt settings we say you're a helpful and enthusiastic hotel assistant. Your task is to give a relevant response that is in perfect cohesion with the chat history conversation. Okay, so if the user said that I want to book a perfect room for the weekend, what do you guys have? The AI can be able to give a response saying, definitely I can help you get a perfect room for the weekend, and you're seeing that statement is in perfect cohesion with what they've said. So that's why we want a cohesive chat conversation. Okay, so you can pause and read through the prompt itself, but an important part is after giving that response that is in cohesion with what the user has stated, we ask for their name. So you can see here, for example, in the examples you can see the user said, do you have any rooms available for the upcoming conference? Yes, we definitely have some rooms available for the upcoming conference. I can help you in booking the perfect room for your stay. First of all, what's your name? So in any case, we need to end the statement by asking for their name, and that's part of the instructions. Okay, so then we'll have a captcha block that captures their name, saves it to a variable called customer name. Then we ask for their email. Then we capture their email using what we call entities. So what entities are is, for example, if the user says my email is mutiso@gmail.com, it will just pick mutiso@gmail.com as the email. We don't capture the entire response. Okay, so you can see here, you can either capture the entire user reply or capture a specific part of it that we so need. So that's where entities come in handy. So I went ahead and created a new entity, called it email. So for that, you can create new entity, give it a name of email, and choose the data type as email. So you see that's already built into Voiceflow. So if it captures the right email, it will proceed and save it to a variable called customer email. So you see in the actions, the action is set customer email to that email address. Okay, but if they input a wrong email, for example mutiso@, and they don't complete gmail.com, that's a wrong email. So we need to tell them to state the email again. So for that, we have a no match step, okay, that goes ahead to ask, kindly enter the correct email address. Then we forward them back to that captcha block for them to input it correctly. Okay, so once that's in place, we ask for their phone number, capture their phone number. This is also an entity of type number, so that if they say my phone number is 07 blah blah blah, it will just capture 07 blah blah blah. So that's in place. Once it gets the correct phone number, it saves it. So this is an action of setting the customer phone to that phone number that's been captured. Okay, then after saving that variable, it forwards the flow to the block which is for them to pick their hotel room. Okay, so this block is called pick hotel room, and we'll go to it so that you can see it. Okay, but in case they input the wrong phone number, we have a no match step over here. So I went ahead and clicked no match, added a path for the no match, then we're able to handle that. Okay, so if I exit this, you can see here we ask them kindly enter the correct number, then we forward the flow back to the captcha block. So now let's go to the pick a hotel room. So if I click on that and go to that block, it's within the same workflow, so you just a bit tidied up. So first we ask, next kindly select the type of room you want to book, and for this to render the type of rooms, we're using a function block to handle that. So to see the kind of rooms available, we'll go to our Airtable, which is over here. Then we go to room availability. In this, we're able to see the different room types that are available and the number of available rooms that are available for each of those room types. So you can see standard room has 10 available rooms, deluxe room has 5, and so on and so forth. If either of these rooms had 0 available rooms, they won't be displayed back to the user, and I'll show you how we handle that using the function. So you can see number of available rooms, the image to represent that room type, the description, so you can see the description of a standard room and so on and so forth, and the price per night. Okay, so let's go back to the function over here and let's see how we're able to render this dynamically. So the function itself has some input variables, output variables, and paths. Okay, so the only input variable that we need in this case is the Airtable token that gives us access to the Airtable API to be able to retrieve those room types. Okay, so this Airtable token, you can just go to your Airtable over here, click on your profile, then go to build a hub. So I'll just drag this over here. So once you land over here, you want to create a new access token that gives you permission to access the API. So give it a name, whatever it is you want to name it. give it some scopes. So this is the level of permissions that you want to give access to. So for example, if you only want to retrieve information, you'll only give it read permissions. If you want to create new records or update a record, you'll also give it write permissions. But normally I just like to give it all scopes, so that in case later on I want to access a specific functionality, I can always do it using that one access token. So go ahead and add the scopes that you want. You can add all of them, then attach a base. So this is the database you want to use. In this case, mine is hotel. Then you'll create the token. It will pop up with your access token, copy it and save it somewhere, because you'll use it within your Voiceflow. You can just come in and paste it in directly to your Voiceflow. So if I go to the workflows, over here in the function itself, you'll click on it, then you'll paste in your access token over here. Okay, so that is critical. So let's go back to the function. So standard procedure is, when you start your function, always obtain all the variables you'll be using. So we obtain our Airtable token, then we want to make an API call to retrieve the room types. Okay, so this is the function that does that. So try making an API call to retrieve the room types. If in any case you run into an error, be able to capture that error down here. So I'll scroll down here, we'll capture the error, then follow through the path of error. So this is how we exit from the function. We use the return keyword, exit the function, then we pass through the path of error, which is over here. So we explicitly state our paths: success, error, or no room selected. Okay, so once we pass through that path, we want to send back a debug message, so you can be able to know why isn't it working. Okay, so we'll turn a trace of type debug, and the debug message is error retrieving available room types. Okay, so if you're not familiar, a trace is whatever is being rendered into the chatbot. If the AI responds with a statement like, "Hi, I'm Zawadi, here to help you," that's a statement which is a trace of type text. If it renders some buttons, that is a trace of type choice. Okay, but in this case, this is a trace of type debug, which when you run the chatbot within your Voiceflow canvas, you normally see some small messages in gray that tells you what's happening in the background. So that helps in debugging. But once you deploy the chatbot, you can't see it. Remember, in the demo, you don't see those small messages. Okay, so now let's assume everything's working. Okay, so try doing this API call. Okay, so first of all, we'll create an Airtable formula that will filter and get only the available rooms that have number of available rooms not equal to 0. So that means that it has more than 0 available rooms. Let's say 1, 2, or 3 available rooms. Okay, so then we make an API call. Okay, so await fetch, then getting this URL, we're able to get, let me just expand this. So this URL you get from Airtable documentation, which is just so awesome. So you'll go back here to build a hub, go to developer docs, scroll down till you see web API docs, click on that. Scroll down till you see the database you want to access, which is in this case hotel. Then you want to click the table that you want to access. In this case is room availability table, so we'll click on it, click list records. Then you want to copy this URL as is, so the entirety of it, you can copy the entirety of it, go back to your Voiceflow and paste it in there. Okay, so you come and paste it over here. Okay, but I also suggest you don't copy the entire URL, just copy till this part. So let me just show you, just this part over here. Okay, till where you see the question mark. Okay, so copy that, come back to your Voiceflow, paste it in there, then you'll have question mark. So this is where you pass in the parameters, filter by formula, and we pass in the formula we just pass in over here. And notice I didn't mention that this formula itself, we want to encode it. Okay, so we are using this inbuilt JavaScript function, encode URI component, that encodes this formula into the URL. Okay, so that's critical. Anytime you're passing in a variable into your URL when you're making an API call, that variable has to be encoded, otherwise it won't work. Okay, so the request type is a get request because we are retrieving information. Then we pass in our Airtable token for authorization. Then we capture the response and transform it into JSON so that we're able to work with it. Then we check if the JSON response is not empty, or the JSON response .records is not empty. That means it was successfully retrieved, so we're able to continue. Otherwise, if this is empty, means it wasn't able to retrieve the room types, we're able to come down here and follow the else path, and we exit the function. So return exits from the function, we pass through the path of error, then we return a debug message saying no room type records found. Okay, so then we pass in the response. so that we're able to use it for debugging purposes. Okay, otherwise, if everything is okay, we're able to render the room types back to the user in form of a carousel. So we'll handle that. So first we create an empty variable. It will be an empty array where we'll insert our card objects. So each single card within the carousel is represented by an object, and we'll be able to see that object, how it's structured. Okay, so this function, I'll get into it, is just inserting commas within the price itself, and you'll see how we handle that. So first of all, we want to loop through each record of the room types returned. Then we want to push an object that represents a single card. Okay, and this object will be inserted into our cards array over here. And a single card has an ID, has a title of that card, has a description, okay, has an image URL, and has some buttons. Okay, so in regard to the detail of how we render this, I've done a full comprehensive video on how we're able to render things dynamically. So for that, just go and visit my YouTube channel. You'll see a video on how to render things dynamically into your Voiceflow chatbot. It's quite comprehensive, and you'll understand the nitty-gritties on how this works, okay, and why we do the things that we're doing over here. So that's very critical. Go and check out that video. So first of all, in the title, we check in the JSON response. We want to get that specific record, which is in that specific index that we are in the for loop. Then we want to access the fields, but specifically the room type. So that will be the title of that card. Okay, then the description, we want to say price per night is Kenya shillings. Then we pass in that specific price. So first of all, we get the price through this specific section of the code, which gets the price per night. Then we pass that price to this function, which is number with commas, and this function just inserts commas every 3 zeros. So 1,000 has 1 comma, 1,000,000 has 2 commas, so we want to insert the commas accordingly. Then we have the image URL. We just obtain it from JSON response dot records. We want to access that specific record, the fields, but specifically the image. Okay, then we have some buttons. It only has one button to select that room type, so the button name is select. Okay, then this is a request that will be sent to the Voiceflow runtime when the user clicks on that specific button. So if, let's say, 3 room types are displayed, each of them has a button called select. If I select, let's say, the first room type, an event will be sent to the Voiceflow runtime, so that we're able to obtain the specific room type they have selected. Okay, so this is the request that is sent back. Okay, so the type of request is default path, and this is critical because once we're exiting from the function, we'll follow through the path of default path, and I'll show you how that works. Just wait. So in the payload, we'll pass in the room type, the room description, and the room price, which we'll use within the chatbot flow from this function. Okay, so once we have created all the cards for the room types, we want to now exit the function, and we want to return some traces, which is a carousel. Okay, so we'll return a trace, and the trace is of type carousel, and in the payload we pass in, which is a layout of carousel, and the cards we just created. So these cards is the cards that we created over here. Okay, then this is critical, so pay attention. So exiting from the function, you can be able to exit 2 ways. Okay, there's the next one command, which is what we've been used to using over here, where it only has one argument, which is path. But there's the next many command. Okay, so the next many command ensures that we only exit from this function once the user has interacted with something within the function. So for example, in this case, we only want to exit from this function once the user has selected a specific room type. Okay, so that we're able to know which room type they've selected. Okay, so that's why we have the next many command, which has 3 properties. Okay, so pay attention here. It has the listen property set to true, which means we want to pause once the function has been executed to wait for the user to make an interaction with the chatbot, so that that event is sent to the Voiceflow runtime, and we're able to use it to decide on how we're able to continue with the flow. Okay, so listen property set to true means pause after executing the function, pause to wait for the user to, let's say, send a message or click on a button, just for them to interact with the chatbot for us to continue. That is critical. So then we have the to property, which takes in an array of conditional events. Okay, so a condition takes in 2 properties, an on property and a des property. So this on is like the if statement. Check if the event type is this. If that's the case, follow this specific path. Okay, So this path is in the dest property, and this is the paths that we explicitly stated. If I minimize this, you can see our paths over here. So this is the paths that we are passing through over here. But now you're wondering, we only have one condition, which is if the event type is default path. Why is this? Is because in either way, whatever room type they select will just flow through the same path. But why we're using the next many command is so that we pause and wait for them to select. Then whatever they select will be passed on through this payload. So that is the critical part. So even if the path will follow through is just one path, which is default path, we want to pause and get in this payload. Okay, but in actual sense, there are some times where you'll have several conditions over here where the event type, first of all, let's say this is default path, the next one is default path 1, the next one default path 2, depending on the scenario that you're working with at that moment. Okay, so then we have a default 2 property, which states that if none of these conditions that have been stated here are met, follow through the path of no room selected. Okay, so why is this? Is in case the user doesn't select a specific button for a specific room type. So in this case, they actually just typed in a statement. Okay, we want to flow through the path of default 2, means they didn't select a room, and that path is no room selected. Okay, so and the rest of this is just error handling, which we have already touched on. Okay, so now let's move on. But you can see I've said it's best practice to render the carousel or buttons via the custom action block due to global listening issue. So this is critical. I just wanted to render it using the function block to show you that this is a possibility. But in real sense, I'd have used the custom action block and a JavaScript block. I've already done a video on this, on how you can use the custom action block to render things dynamically, which I think I've already mentioned, but you can go and check out that video. Why is this? Is using the custom action block, it has a feature. So let me just drag it out over here. So here in the custom action block, there's this feature. If I click over here, you'll see use global listening. And what this does is, once we have rendered the carousel and the chat conversation continues back and forth with the user can always scroll back up to where the carousel had been stated, and they can be able to select a different carousel or a different card or a different button. So it enables the chatbot to be more forgiving. In case the user selected the wrong room type, they can always scroll back up and choose a different room type, which is impossible when we use the function block to render it dynamically. So that is critical. Okay, and I'll show you how we're able to use this custom action when we are rendering the local attractions. So this is critical. Okay, so once we have rendered the room types successfully, we'll flow on to this JavaScript block, which just obtains whatever that the user had picked. So the room they selected, the description of that room, and the price of that room. So you can see how we're able to get that. That is in the last event dot payload dot room description. And what is the last event? I think I already showed you that. So let's go to the function. You can see here the last event is this specific request over here. So you're able to see it there. So whatever button they click, this is the request that will be sent. So we're doing last event dot payload dot room type. Okay, so that is critical. Then over here we render the room description just in a text message. Then we move on for them to pick the start date of their stay. Okay, so in case there was an error rendering the room types, we'll just flow through this path, render a message saying error, then we end the conversation. In case they didn't pick a specific room, we'll forward them to the response AI step that was in the home workflow that we had over here. Okay, this means they actually typed in a statement or a question, the AI can respond to them. Okay, but in case they pick a room, so now we flow on to pick the start date, which is just over here. So kindly mention the day you'd love to check in. We capture their response. Then we have a JavaScript block over here, which sets the current date. So we'll use this current date to determine the exact start date. Okay, so for example, if the current date is 25th of September and they say I want to check in tomorrow, the AI can be able to know that tomorrow is 26th. So that's why we are setting the current date over here. So this code does that. Then we have a set AI step over here, which extracts the date. So you can read through the prompt. You're a date extraction system. Your task is to analyze the entire conversation history to determine whether it contains a specific date, all that, so forth. Then we provide the current date. So you can pause and read through the prompt. But the point is, it will be able to analyze the chat conversation and get the specific date the user has mentioned. Then we'll give it some examples down here. So it's a long prompt, but if you're using the template, you already have it, okay? So then we give it the chat history conversation, which is by default available in the VF memory variable. So then we save whatever the AI determines as the date to a variable called captured date, okay? Then we move on to another set AI step that converts that date into ISO format, which is this format that you're seeing over here, where it's the year, 4 digits, 2 digits for the month, and 2 digits for the day. So we're able to handle that. Then we save it to a variable called ISO date, okay? Then we move on and ask them how long they're planning to stay, capture their response, okay? Then we move on to a set AI step again to extract the duration, okay? So in case they said that I want to check in tomorrow, then they say I want to stay for a week, that is 7 days and that is 6 nights, okay? Because the last day they don't sleep, okay? If they say I want to check in tomorrow, then the AI asks how long do you plan to stay, and they say I want to stay till the 3rd of October. The AI can be able to calculate how many nights are in between the 3rd of October and the 26th of September, okay? So that is critical. So this prompt does that, okay? So let me just open it. This prompt does that, so you can pause and read through it, okay? So you see, for example, here, if the user says from 20th May to 26th May, the assistant will say those are 5 nights, and it's only to return the number of nights, and that only, okay? And save that to a variable called number of nights, because we'll use this number of nights to calculate the price they ought to pay for their stay, okay? So next thing, we confirm the number of nights. So that is 6 nights. Is that correct? So that is 5 nights. Is that correct? Okay. Then if they say yes, we move on. If they say no, we say, sorry for the confusion. Kindly state how long you're planning to stay. Then we capture the stay duration again. So this block is just this one over here. Okay. So capture their response again. So then next we have a JavaScript block that's able to calculate the total amount they ought to pay. So you're seeing that's the number of nights times the room price, okay? Then we insert commas within the amount so that we can render it back to the user. Then we save that amount to a variable called total amount print. So you're saying we're passing in the total amount, okay, to this function called number with commas, okay? So that inserts the commas within the amount, okay? Then next you tell them your total amount will be Kenya shillings, whatever, it can be 300,000, 200,000. Click the button below to pay. Then when they click on the button, it takes them to this custom action block, which pops up the payment model, if you remember in the demo. So this custom action extension has a custom action name of x_pay, and this is what will trigger that specific extension, okay? Let's go to the HTML file where we render this so that you can see that in action. So you're seeing this is the HTML file, just a simple HTML file. Then this is a script code that we get from the Voiceflow integration tab. Then the only thing we change is changing this to type module so that we can import our external modules, okay? This type module enables us to use the import keyword, okay? Why is this? Is because we have our extensions in this JavaScript file called extensions.js, which I suggest this is the best way to create your extensions. Create your extensions in a different file so that you don't clutter your index.html with too much code, because you could as well just all this extension code, we could have it within our index.html file within this script tag, okay? Then we just insert it in accordingly, but it will be too cluttered. So we create the extension in our extensions.js, then we export it, insert it into our HTML file, okay? So let's go through the extension. So I already did a video on working with extensions. You can go and check it out. Everything you need to know on creating and working with chat widget extensions. It's quite comprehensive. Go and check that out, okay? So here's the name of the extension. The extension type can either be effect or response. Response means that we want to render something within the chat widget. Effect means we just want to perform an action, not necessarily render something into the chat widget, okay? In this case, the action is popping up the payment model. That payment model isn't rendered within the chat widget. That's why we use extension of type effect, okay? Then over here we check the trace type that's been sent from the Voiceflow runtime. Does it have x_pay as the custom action name? If that's the case, that means this is the extension we are trying to trigger. And that's why you see x_pay is the name that we gave to the custom action, so that we can trigger that specific extension. Okay, so then we want to pass in this effect. We don't need this parameter of element. This would come in handy if we were using the response extension. Okay, then going into the nitty-gritties of this extension, you can go and check out, I did a video on integrating payments into the Voiceflow chatbot, so go and check that out. But the critical part is, once the user has made a successful payment, we want to return the payment ID back to the Voiceflow chatbot. Okay, so that's why this is the code that does that. Okay, so you're saying we send an interact event back to Voiceflow, pass through the path of payment complete, then we pass in the payload the payment reference number that we got from Paystack, which is in this case the payment provider. Then back here in the index.html, once we import the extension as is, we pass the extension to the Voiceflow chatbot this way. So you have an assistant property, and in the assistant we pass in the extension, and we pass in the extension we want to use. So back here in the Voiceflow, you can see in the custom action we have only one path, and that path is payment complete, which you remember, if I go back here, is the path we pass through once the payment has been successfully done. Okay, then we toggle stop on action, which means only proceed with the chatbot conversation once they've made the payment. Okay, the next here we have a JavaScript step just to obtain the payment ID from the last event dot payload dot reference number, and the last event is this last event, okay, dot payload dot reference number. Okay, then now here is a function to save the booking details. So you can see it takes in several variables, but let's go into the function itself. So it takes in some input variables: the amount paid, customer name, email, phone, the date they want to start, number of nights, the room type, the payment ID, and the Airtable token, so as to call the database and add that record. Okay, then the output variable is the booking ID of the record created within Airtable. Okay, so first standard procedure, let's just expand this, is to obtain all the variables we'll be using. Okay, then we want to make an API call to Airtable, which is a post request. So in the headers we want to pass in the access token for authorization. Then we want to say that the content of the body is JSON data, and you can see that's why in the body itself we want to turn this into a JSON string. Okay, and pass in the fields that we want to add to the record, and the fields are customer name, email, all that based on what we imported. Okay, then once that's been done successfully, we want to obtain the response, turn it into JSON so that we can work with it. If the response JSON is not empty, or response JSON.id is not empty, means the record was created successfully, then we can handle that accordingly. So if it ran into an error, this will be empty, therefore we can be able to handle that. So else, if that's the case, we want to exit from the function, pass through the path of error, then we return a debug message saying error creating the new booking records, then we pass in the response JSON error.message. Okay, and also in any case, if any error runs within the function, we're able to handle that error through this block. So we have a catch block that captures the error, exit to the path of error, then return the debug message accordingly, passing in the error message. Okay, so now let's assume everything is okay. We want to send an email to the customer with their booking details, and for this we use make.com for that. So you can see we're making an API call to make.com. Okay, and let me just show you the make.com scenario. So here is the scenario itself. It's just a simple scenario that has two modules. Okay, so the first module is the trigger, and it's an instant trigger which runs the scenario when data comes through. Okay, so it's always waiting for when data comes in through this specific webhook is when it will send the email. Okay, so there are two trigger types: instant trigger and polling trigger. Polling trigger is one that is waits every, let's say, 5 minutes or 15 minutes for it to check if there are any changes so that it can run the scenario. But in this case, it's an instant trigger that runs immediately data comes in. You can see the webhook itself. Okay, so we copy this webhook and go and paste it within our Voiceflow function. Okay, and the email, so this email module is what will send the email. Okay, it takes in and sends in the email to that specific customer email we get from the API call. Okay, then it has a subject line of hotel booking. The content type is HTML, so that you can use HTML tags like this one. Okay, so it says dear customer name, let's say dear Mutiso. This is to inform on your recent booking. Then you pass in all those details accordingly. Okay, then going back here, so we paste in that webhook URL over here. Then we send a post request Okay, then the content type is application/JSON. We don't have any authorization or access token, so that's why we only have one headers. Then we pass in the data we want to pass through to make.com. Okay, so then we check the email response. The status text is okay. If it's okay, means email was sent successfully. So we can exit the function, pass through the path of success. Then we want to return the output variables, which is booking ID, and that's we get in the booking ID of that specific record from Airtable. Okay, but if the email response status text is not okay, means it wasn't able to send the email, we're able to exit the function, pass through the path of error, then we send in the debug message of error sending emails, then we pass in the email response for debug purposes. Okay, then this part we've already handled for handling the errors. Okay, so let's go back to the workflow. So if there's an error saving the booking details, we'll just say, sorry, we're having trouble saving your booking details, kindly try again later. Then we take them to the block of any further assistance. Okay, but if everything was successful, we say successfully booked your hotel room, here's your booking ID, kindly check your email for your booking details. Okay, is there anything else I can help you with? If yes, we take them to the block where it asks sure, go ahead. Then it captures the response for the AI to continue with the conversation. Otherwise, if they say no, we just say, if you need any further assistance, don't hesitate, I'm here for you. Then we end the conversation. Okay, so that's the book a room functionality. Okay, now let's go to the local attractions functionality, which suggests some fun places the guest can go to whilst at the hotel. So this workflow does that. So what triggers this specific workflow is the local attractions intent. So if I go to the intent itself to see the kind of statements that trigger it, I can be able to see that. So you can see trigger this intent when the user expresses interest in knowing any fun activities or local attractions surrounding the hotel. Then if they say statements like, can you recommend any interesting local attractions? What are some popular tourist spots nearby? And so on and so forth. Okay, so if that's the case, just like initially, we want the AI to give a response that is in cohesion with what they've said. Okay, so this response AI step does that. And if you go to the prompt settings, you can see it's a quick one. You can read through that. You're a hotel assistant. Your work is to acknowledge that you can assist the user in finding local attraction they can visit. Remember that the local attractions are already set and will be displayed below the message you respond with. Therefore, don't ask them to provide any further details. So that was some cautioning I'm giving the AI. While I was practicing with it, I saw it was messing up a bit. Then we have a function block to retrieve the local attractions. Okay, so let's go to it. So it takes in the Airtable token. Okay, then we make an API call to the local attractions endpoint. It's a get request. Then we pass in our access token, transform the response that comes back from the API into JSON. Then we check if that response is not empty. If that's the case, that means successfully retrieved the local attractions. So we want to exit the function, flow through the path of success, then we send back the local attractions through this variable. So you're seeing in the output variables you have local attractions. So you want to set it to the records that we get back from the API call. Okay, else if the JSON response is empty, means that was an error. We exit the function, pass through the path of error, then send back this debug message. Same case to if there's any error within the function, we can pick it up and send it back to the developer through a debug message, okay, for them to debug it. Back to the workflows. So if it's successfully retrieved the local attractions, we'll move on. Otherwise, we'll just say error while retrieving local attractions, then we end it. Okay, so now this JavaScript block is what will help render the carousel dynamically, the carousel containing the local attractions. So remember I told you there are two ways you can render things dynamically into your Voiceflow chatbot, using the custom action block or using the function block. The function block is what we used to render the room types, but in this case I told you that it has a limitation of it's not forgiving, such that if the user selected the wrong room and they continued with the chat conversation, they can't scroll back up and pick a different room. Okay, but with this case, using the custom action block, they can do that. Okay, so this JavaScript step does that. Kind of like what we already used using the function block. We get the local attractions and turn it into JSON so that we can work with it. Create an empty cards array. Then we loop through each single local attraction. Then we create a card for it. Kind of like what we already did. So I won't go to the details. Then we create the payload that will render the carousel dynamically, and you'll see where we'll insert this payload. Okay, so then we turn it into a string, because the custom action block body only accepts a string, and I'll show you that. So next, after this, we go to a custom action block. Custom action block has a custom action name of carousel, which means whatever trace you're trying to render using this custom action block is what you'll pass in as a custom action name. So if you're trying to render some buttons, this will have it as choice. Okay, if you're trying to render text, you'll have this as trace of type text. Otherwise, in this case, we want to render carousel, so you'll have that as carousel. That is critical. If you misspell carousel, it won't work. Then in the action body, you pass in that payload, and this is why this has to be a string. So that's why we were stringifying that payload. Then we only have one default path. So in any case, once we display the local attractions and they pick either of the local attractions, we flow through one path. Okay, and I think I didn't touch on that in the JavaScript over here. When we render the carousel, we have some buttons, and that button has a button if they want to learn more about that local attraction. Okay, so in the request that we send, once they click on that button, is this request, and in the payload we want to pass in the description of that local attraction. Okay, and you can see that in the request type is the default path, which matches the name of the path that we want to flow through in the custom action. So you can see default path is the same name we have for the path within the custom action block over here. Okay, then we toggle stop on action for us to only proceed once we select learn more on a specific local attraction. Okay, then over here we set use global listening. So I can disable this to show you. I come back here and say use global listening, which is that feature which I mentioned. If they pick the wrong local attraction, they can always scroll back up and pick a different local attraction to learn more about it. Okay, then whatever they pick, if they say learn more on the first local attraction, that description will be passed in through the payload of the last event. Okay, so we're able to capture that, save it to a variable called attraction description, then is what will render back to the user through this text message. You see, we pass in the attraction description. Okay, and yeah, that's how this works. We can be able to just continue over here and ask them, is there anything else I can help you with? Okay, but I think I'm done over here. Then to deploy the chatbot itself, just come back over here, go to the integrations tab, then you'll copy this code as is, and is what you'll go and paste in within your HTML file over here. Then if you're importing your extensions from an external file, you'll transform this script type to type module. So you can see here, this is type text / JavaScript, but you want to change it to type module if your extensions are in a different file. Okay, then you can be able to change the appearance. So let's say the title of the chatbot, you can see that, the description, all that, and some few settings. Then you can even change the theme color. So like you can insert the brand color of the specific hotel, and you can upload even the icon or the brand icon of that hotel. Okay, so you can see that's what we're using over here, the brand icon over here and the brand icon over here. So that's how you're able to deploy it for it to be more brand cohesive. Okay, and yeah, that's it from me. If you want access to everything we've built over here, so that is the Voiceflow template as well as the code that we use to build this chatbot, link in the description. If you want to work with our team to build such comprehensive chatbots, whether it's an AI chatbot, whether it's an AI voice bot, whether it's automating any repetitive tasks within your business, link in the description to visit our website and book in a meeting with our team. Anyways, till next time, stay servy. Peace.